How long the machine gunner lives is how long the squad lives. This isn't Browning M2's first war, but in the trenches of the Russia-Ukraine war, this hellish machine has become a key factor in turning the tide of battles. When the machine gun is firing, you don't dare raise your head, even if you're Rambo. A trained machine gunner is a nightmare for the enemy. So why does this 90-year-old American machine gun remain the best in the world? Well, Ukrainian soldiers have some answers for you. This gun only jams under two conditions: if it's filthy and unlubricated, or if it's completely worn out. The Browning M2 can take out Soviet-era armor used by the Russians. It's an incredibly powerful weapon. When this baby gets going, it's terrifying. But seeing is believing, right? These guys know what they're talking about. The American machine gun saved their lives when they found themselves in a tight spot. One morning, a radio call came through. 2 Russian BMPs packed with assault troops were headed straight for their position. The Ukrainian soldiers' position was considered impenetrable, but that morning it was still dark and thick fog blanketed the area. To make things worse, the blanket covering the Browning M2 had frozen solid to the metal. Luck seemed to be on the Russian side, but only for a moment. The machine gunner managed to rip off the frozen cover and then opened fire into the darkness. I was aiming based on sound and instinct, the soldier shared. The rest, as they say, is history. It's worth mentioning that the Browning M2 roars louder than thunder. At 150 decibels, this beast can disorient anyone without proper protection. That's why hearing protection is essential when firing it. But in combat, as we've seen, that's not always an option. As the Russian BMPs crept closer, the machine gunner could see their silhouettes, illuminated by the sparks flying off the impacts. The vehicle sputtered to a halt. Assault troops began jumping out and running. They shouted over the radio, "Reload, they're running!" The attack was repelled, and thanks to the Browning M2, the defenders came out on top. Importantly, despite the intense use, the machine gun never jammed. This weapon is unbelievably reliable. For infantry holding the line in trenches, the Browning M2 is the last hope. When bad weather grounds FPV drones, or poor visibility renders anti-tank systems useless, the sheer storm of hundreds of 12.7mm rounds can stop any light-armored vehicle in its tracks. But have you seen what happens when a BMP catches fire and then explodes? The secret lies in the 12.7 by 99mm ammunition, and we're about to reveal it. One of the Browning M2's greatest strengths is the wide range of ammunition it can use. It was long believed that Ukraine was supplied with only 2 types of rounds for this weapon, but it turns out there are at least 12, like the Apostles. So, the Browning M2 and its 12 Apostles. Look closely. Each type is marked with a different color tip, but one of these Apostles is truly extraordinary and extremely rare. Enter the Mk211 Raufoss round. This ammunition features an armor-piercing tungsten core and an incendiary compound inside. Upon penetrating the armor, the round detonates, spreading the incendiary material inside. Typically, only artillery systems use such destructive ammunition, and those are in much larger calibers. The Mk211, however, delivers the destructive power of a 20mm cannon shell right out of a machine gun. Did you know there are machine gun rounds with explosive power? Hit like if you did. Congrats, you've passed the Browning M2 theory exam and are ready for the practical test. If you didn't, hit like anyway, because now you're officially in the class. By the way, the Mk211 round is also wildly popular for sniper work with the Barrett rifle, because this machine gun can also be used as a sniper weapon. Here's how. You take the machine gun, attach a Picatinny rail, mount a scope, and voila. We just switch it to long range mode. The Browning M2 was first used for sniper-style shooting by American forces. Its effective range is 2,200 yards. But during the Vietnam War, US Marine sniper Carlos Hathcock turned his Browning M2 into a sniper rifle, setting a record that lasted until 2002 by hitting a target at 2,460 yards. With a fire rate of up to 635 rounds per minute, the Browning M2 delivers a storm of fire no sniper could match. Here's what happens when a group of soldiers walks into an ambush set by an M2 machine gunner. These Russian soldiers didn't stand a chance, as the machine gunner delivered precision fire. But the Browning M2 also allows you to fire accurately at targets you can't even see. Here's what that looks like. Indirect fire is when you shoot based on coordinates and azimuth. You don't see the enemy, and they don't see you. It's practically an artillery technique. The bullets arc over obstacles and hit the target directly. Now imagine that precision with a burst of dozens of rounds. The technique is impressive, but requires mastery of optics and complex calculations, not something every soldier can handle. Another standout round in this war is the one with the red tip, a tracer round. But wait, doesn't it reveal the machine gunner's position? Why risk firing tracer rounds if it could invite a counterstrike? The Browning M2 weighs 84 pounds, plus the tripod, and then there are the ammo boxes, each weighing 35 pounds. Carrying all this and switching positions every 2 to 3 minutes is no small feat, even with a strong and tireless assistant. But here's the thing, without tracer rounds, it's hard to imagine nighttime hunting. For drones. Every night, the Russians launch dozens, sometimes hundreds, of Shahed kamikaze drones over Ukraine, targeting critical infrastructure. And every night, Ukrainian crews head out on combat patrols. The intensity is really high right now. Air raid alerts go off daily, and there's a huge number of enemy UAVs over Ukraine. In flight, the Shahed drones emit a distinct buzzing sound, but shooting at them based solely on sound isn't practical. They're small and hard to hit. So first, the crew needs to locate the drone in the sky using thermal imaging. In the thermal scope, it looks like a red dot moving across the screen. Once the target is identified, they mark it with a laser designator. Target eliminated. Taking down a single drone often requires at least 100 rounds, an entire box of ammo. Reloading takes precious time, so the Ukrainians came up with a clever solution. We modified the ammo box to hold 200 rounds instead of 100. It's much more efficient. The crew typically arrives at the position in a vehicle, with the Browning M2 mounted on a tripod. In the turret? That doesn't seem to be standard issue either. This kind of weapon modification, battlefield experimentation, and technical innovation has become the norm in this war. Recently, Ukrainian National Guard troops managed to shoot down a cruise missile with a Browning M2. The target? An H-101, Putin's favorite missile, carrying nearly 900 pounds of explosives. Of course, this was an experiment, and success favored the gunners, as the missile flies at speeds of up to 620 miles per hour. But success tends to follow the best, doesn't it? So where else can this American gadget, capable of piercing 25mm armor and sometimes taking down missiles, be deployed? During World War II, Browning M2s were mounted on fighters and bombers. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress carried 13 M2s, while the record holder, Douglas A-26, could pack up to 14. But this war takes versatility to another level. The Browning M2 can be mounted on virtually anything, even dune buggies. Now take a look at this footage from an operation carried out by Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, HER. Russia was using this oil platform for military purposes, outfitting it with radar equipment to monitor the sea and airspace. That had to be addressed. 14 Sea Force assault boats, each equipped with Browning M2 machine guns, stormed the target. Imagine 14 machine guns firing simultaneously. It's like a high-speed cavalry charge. Subscribe to our channel if you agree. By the way, this mission was deemed a success, despite Russian claims that the Ukrainian attack was drenched in blood. But as we say, seeing is believing. Browning M2s are also mounted on Island-class patrol boats and Navy 18 WP-class boats, supplied to Ukraine by the US and Estonia. It's not unlikely that we'll soon see the iconic Browning M2 machine gun mounted on Ukraine's famous naval drones. After all, Ukrainians recently equipped the robotic ground system droid TW-12.7 with this heavy hitter. This gadget can cover 9 miles and unleash a storm of suppressive fire on enemy positions while clearing the way for assault troops to land. it comes loaded with a 300-round ammunition capacity. For perspective, that's roughly the same amount of ammo carried by an assault trooper armed with a Kalashnikov or an assault rifle. However, the Browning M2 fires 50 caliber 12.7mm rounds, giving it the firepower to take out lightly armored vehicles with ease. It's hard to imagine a modern infantry fighting vehicle, IFV, or armored personnel carrier, APC, without a Browning M2 on board. Recognize this 14-ton beast? It's the Max Pro armored personnel carrier, complete with a machine gun turret on top. You might think being a machine gunner on an APC is easier. No heavy lifting for the gun or ammo. But what does this soldier think? On the move, you've got to control the turret joystick with one hand and fire with the other. It's not exactly easy. The joystick is sensitive. Turret speed and angle depend on the force applied, so the gunner needs to not only shoot on the move, but also skillfully maneuver the turret. Lives depend on it, because APC gunners operate at very close ranges. On the Max Pro, 200 to 300 yards is the norm for suppressing enemy infantry. And reloading? Forget about it. That's just too much. The mission for this crew is straightforward but dangerous. Approach enemy positions at high speed, suppress them with machine gun fire, and allow friendly infantry to either safely deploy or evacuate. However, safety in a firefight is a very relative term, so speed is everything. I fire until I'm empty, shout clear, and the driver spins us around and we get out fast. The adrenaline is off the charts. This guy has a tough job. Let's wish him good luck. But it seems the machine gunner on another American APC, the Striker, might feel a bit safer. Here's what his workstation looks like. This is the monitor, with day and night cameras. And here's the joystick for controlling the module and firing. The Striker's remote-controlled weapon system, loaded with 2,000 rounds, makes life easier. On top of that, the APC has side windows for infantry to fire from, offering additional firepower. The gunner's position is also protected by 14.5mm armor, giving them much-needed security. So yes, the Striker gunner has it a little easier compared to others. But here's a question for you. Where is it hardest to be a machine gunner? In a trench, a building, or an armored vehicle? Tell us in the comments.